Coming up now in your spoiler-free wrestling news rundown, Vince McMahon is back running creative for WWE. Speaking of WWE, its sale to Endeavor was made official on Tuesday, and we've got everything there is to know about Nia Jax's return on Raw. Vince McMahon is back booking WWE. He had been away from the company since July after undergoing what was described as major spinal surgery. We don't know specific details regarding the procedure McMahon had, but we do know it was described as major and life-altering. Well, he's back, and while he was not backstage in Norfolk, Virginia for Raw, he was said to be working remotely and made several changes to the script for the show. WWE's shows for the last 2 months have had a very distinct Triple H feel to them. They share many similarities to how the show was booked during McMahon's 6-month quote-unquote retirement in 2022. In general, and these are just observations, but Triple H's booking style is different from McMahon's in that he seems to have a far greater respect for non-WWE wrestling history. Vince McMahon always wants WWE to distance itself from other pro wrestling by using terms such as sports entertainment and wrestlers being called superstars. But Triple H doesn't do that. Shows where he has been running things are far more likely to include references to other wrestling companies, such as Bronson Reed's time in New Japan Pro Wrestling being referenced on Raw a few weeks back. There are other things that you are far more likely to see on a show run by Triple H versus one by Vince McMahon. Wrestlers talking in languages other than English is something Triple H will put on his show, but Vince McMahon isn't big on. We've seen Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn speak French in Quebec. Shinsuke Nakamura's awesome promos in Japanese during his feud with Seth Rollins as well. We've seen Asuka and Io Sky do promos in Japanese as well. And just that Io is the champion right now is very indicative that it was Triple H with the final say. Vince McMahon never called Io Sky up from NXT. She was stuck there. But then as soon as Vince McMahon retires, Triple H booked her to appear on SummerSlam. And now, with Vince McMahon out after having spinal surgery, Io Sky is the champion. That is, I think, pretty significant evidence that Triple H has had the final say of late over the last 2 months. Emphasis on secondary titles is also far more prevalent on a show booked by Triple H. I have a theory as to why Vince McMahon books shows in the way that he does. So when Vince first started taking over the creative of WWF, he defied all the hardcore wrestling fans by putting the world title on Hulk Hogan. As at the time in wrestling, it was sort of taboo to put a world title on a guy who didn't actually have a background in amateur wrestling. And this is why the AWA never put the title on Hogan. Even though Hogan was the most popular wrestler in the world, his popularity had skyrocketed following his appearance in Rocky III. Bob Backlund didn't want to put Hogan over for the same reason, because he didn't have a background in amateur wrestling. Bob Backlund only agreed to drop the title to the Iron Sheik because Sheik did have a legitimate amateur wrestling background, and then the Sheik dropped it to Hogan. The result was Hulkamania, WrestleMania, and Vince McMahon making a lot of money. So it's my belief that this forever shaped Vince McMahon's opinion on how to book a wrestling show. It was positive reinforcement for the idea that if you don't listen to what the wrestling fans want and think only of a wrestler's mainstream appeal, that you can be successful. So basically, he learned that you can ignore what your hardcore fan base wants and be tremendously successful and get rich in doing so. Meanwhile, Triple H has a very healthy respect for pro wrestling and hardcore fans of pro wrestling. When he's booking, he still uses the Vince McMahon playbook of creating larger-than-life stars and basically celebrities out of wrestlers, but he also knows how to give wrestling fans what they want from time to time as well, such as booking matches like Gunther versus Chad Gable to main event a show. it was fitting that McMahon returned to his creative role on Monday, as on Tuesday, WWE's sale to Endeavor Group Holdings was made official. Here are some shots of Vince, still with his pencil-thin mustache, at the New York Stock Exchange. This means for the first time in history, someone with the last name McMahon is not the majority shareholder of WWE. Endeavor now holds a 51% share of the company, which has been merged with the UFC to create TKO Group Holdings, but Vince McMahon will retain his position as the executive chairman of WWE, something which is contractually guaranteed for life to him as part of the deal. Nia Jax is back in WWE. She actually returned to the company in January at the Royal Rumble, but we hadn't seen her since. Her Rumble appearance came shortly after Vince McMahon returned to WWE as the executive chairman, although it's not clear if Triple H would have brought her back as well. While it's not clear why they waited almost 9 months for her to return, we do know that she was training to get back in the ring during that time. She had been training with Natalya and TJ Kidd in Florida, although it seems like everyone does this a little bit. And Nia also mentioned in an interview not long ago that she has been doing some in-ring training at Devon Dudley's gym as well. Nia is a bit of a controversial figure in wrestling, as fans have labeled her as unsafe. The most notable example of Nia hurting someone in the ring came just as Becky Lynch's popularity was skyrocketing in the build-up to Survivor Series 2018. Nia broke Becky's nose during a brawl and gave her a concussion. The result was that Becky had to be taken off Survivor Series, and this caused the direction to the eventual WrestleMania 35 main event to take a few unexpected turns as well. Some more incidents involving Nia Jax injuring people in the ring are up on your screen now. Of course, in 2021, she had a match with Charlotte Flair that seemed to break down into somewhat of a real struggle between the two. It's still not really clear what happened. Mick Foley there tweeting, WTF was up with that match. There was also an incident where Carrie was busted open after being thrown into the steel steps by Nia Jax during a match. So plenty of evidence that Nia Jax might not be the safest to work with. Hacksaw Jim Duggan is out of hospital after suffering a bit of a health scare on Friday. He was actually being honored in his hometown of Glen Falls, New York. He was being made an honorary firefighter, and the mayor even declared it Hacksaw Jim Duggan Day. Unfortunately, he ended up going to the hospital later that night and undergoing emergency surgery the following morning. The nature of his surgery, what procedure he had done, that is not clear, but his wife posted to social media that the surgery went well and he's expected to be back on his feet in no time. And here you can see some photos of Duggan leaving the hospital, and so it appears that he is on the mend and back on his feet. Triple H and Endeavor CEO Ari Emanuel were spotted at New York Fashion Week recently. They may have been there to support Maxine Dupree, who was walking the runway at the event. You can see Triple H here seated next to Amazon's Jeff Bezos. Fightful is reporting that the manager of the Mogul Embassy, Prince Nana, has signed a new deal with AEW. He's said to be getting praised backstage for his work. It is a multi-year agreement, but that's all that's known. So Prince Nana is in the money. There are conflicting stories out there right now regarding Matt Riddle. So Riddle was involved in sort of a weird incident on Sunday at JFK Airport. He was returning from India, where he was performing in the Superstar Spectacle show. And the Port Authority officers say they received a call about a heavily intoxicated person who was being disruptive while transferring flights. That person turned out to be Matt Riddle. Riddle posted a photo of this Port Authority officer and included a caption that accused the man of sexual assault. This prompted the Port Authority to launch an internal investigation into the matter, and WWE is said to be investigating the matter themselves. Riddle was not on Raw last night, and PW Insider reported that he's not expected to be on house shows this weekend either. However, backstage, according to Dave Meltzer, it was said that Riddle wasn't on Raw Monday due to a health issue. He had bronchitis or something like that, and nothing to do with what happened at the airport. So conflicting stories. What's going on with Matt Riddle? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. WWE will present NXT tonight from the Performance Center in Orlando, Florida, the 696th episode of the show. Here is what is advertised. Dana Brooke will take on Lyra Valkyria. The Creed brothers will take on Idris Inoue and Malik Blade. In a Global Heritage Invitational match, Akira Tozawa will take on Nathan Frazer. Also in the Global Heritage Invitational, Tyler Bate will take on Axiom. In a number one contenders match for the NXT Championship, Wes Lee will take on Ilya Dragunov. And for the NXT Women's Championship, this should do good in the ratings, Tiffany Stratton will defend against Becky Lynch. And with that, you are completely up to date in everything making headlines in the world of pro wrestling, minus anything which would potentially spoil future shows for you. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and tap the notifications bell so you don't miss out on any more videos.